All right, so I had asked you to try to find me the equation of the red line. This is about the very beginning of this chapter where they're talking about slopes and points, okay? Well, the slope of this green one, after you multiply everything by 3/2, 3/2 here and 3/2 here, then that cancels that, and we have y equals, the 4 can be changed into a 2 times 2 so that I can cancel that 2 and that 2, and that becomes 6x. And then I have minus 21 halves. There we go. And that part really doesn't matter. All I really wanted is the slope. It was 6. Now here's a really good way to do it. Y minus y sub 1 equals m times x minus x sub 1. And y sub 1 and x sub 1 are a point, which I know right there. There's x. X is -4, and y is 7. So there we go. Now how about the slope? The slope is 6. But if I put a 6 here, that'd be a big mistake. Why? It's the reciprocal, and so should I just make it 1/6? -1/6 is the slope. Why? Because reciprocals, when you have perpendicular lines, are opposite reciprocals. Opposite, yeah. You take the slope and you take the opposite reciprocal of the slope. And there you go. Raise your hand if you had that one right. Okay, good. Now I'll take a next mini little stop along the way. The next section was called absolute values. And so we started with stuff that was simple as this. X minus 2 is less than 5. Well, you start by saying, okay, what does that mean? It's a V shape shifted to the right 2. It looks something like that. And then I've got a line at y equals 5, like that. And what do I want to be? I want the absolute value. The V is less than or under the 5. And that would mean in this little zone right here. So you got to say from here to here. Do you get the idea on that kind? Okay, so you can solve it algebraically, though. Would you please solve this one algebraically by splitting it into 2 parts? I will pause that. Okay, you should have said that x minus 2 is less than 5, and that x minus 2 is less than 5. But that would be crazy, because they're exactly the same. But they are exactly what it is without absolute values. So that's how you should start. But then, on the other side, you don't leave it the same. You change it to -5. And then, because I've effectively multiplied my 5 by a negative, I have to reverse the sign. And it changes to that. Does that make sense to you? Okay, now I'm going to solve from here. I'm going to add 3 to both sides. X is less than 8. And on this side, plus 2, and I have x is greater than -3. Did I do something wrong? Oh! Left side. Added, okay, thank you. Weird. All right, x is less than 7. Okay, there we go. Now, if I put that all together into one statement, I like to do it on a number line. Here's -3, here's 7, and I want to be bigger than -3, so I go like this. And I want to be less than 7, so I go like that. And that helps me really see that it's from -3 to 7 with parentheses on it, not brackets. Raise your hand if you've got the same thing as I did. Okay, good. Then we move to a little more complicated stuff where we would have, for instance, this quadratic, like x squared plus 3x plus 2 is less than or equal to 0. And that's different than just equal to 0. If I just said equal to 0, then it's really pretty easy. If you can factor it, you should. You get the 2 answers. Everybody find those 2 answers. There's just 2 answers for this. Yes, sir. Yes. If you're ever solving an equation and you multiply by a negative, the sign has to switch from being greater than to less than, or vice versa. Did you say on this one x and plus 1 and plus 2, and therefore x equals -1 and x equals -2? All right, good. Then, how do I modify this if I change my problem to say x squared plus 3x plus 2 is less than or equal to 0? Well, it's kind of the same in that those two important spots are still important, but now I have to maybe draw my number line, put those important spots on it, -1 and -2. Maybe I'll go this way. And those spots make it equal 0, and so those are z's. And if they equal 0, they work right there. All right, so now, is it in between? Is it outside? Is it both outside and in between? That can happen sometimes too. Or sometimes the answer to these are all real numbers. Sometimes it's only one number works. All right, I have a suggestion for you. You can either test intervals and say, like, I'm going to test 0. I'm going to test -1.5. And I'm going to test -3. Or, smarter than that, I think, draw a parabola where it would be. You get these are the roots of a parabola, and therefore my parabola, which is open up facing because there's no negative on the front of it, therefore it must be a parabola that's kind of like this. I want my parabola to be less than 0. So where's my parabola less than 0? In there. And therefore I don't even have to do all that testing. My answer comes out to -2 to -1. And does it work at -2 and -1? Yes. Therefore brackets. Any questions on that kind? Yes, sir. It wouldn't actually. If there was a negative in front, here's how it would look. It would have looked like this. Here's my two important spots. And it would have looked like this. And the question was, when is the parabola less than 0? And now the answer would be, it's less than 0 here and here. And then I would have said from -infinity to -2 and from -1 to infinity. That would have been a little different. Okay, we've covered a lot of stuff. And your job for tonight then is to go back, do problems that in the past I told you to skip. Be wary of them though, because sometimes I skipped them because we already had enough practice on that topic. Sometimes I skipped them because they were tricky and like have weird exceptions to the rule kind of thing, and you can get all confused by a problem and then think you don't know what's going on. Okay, just be careful that if you're doing one of those skipped problems, that you're like thinking about, is this one that's a weird exception or is this like all the others that are in this section? Okay, because if it's the weird exception one, don't let it torture you into thinking you don't know what's going on. We've done lots of practice, and what we've been doing together in class is the things that you have to know. Okay, and that's all I have for you for the short video for today. A lot of the stuff was done in class on a little formative that we took called Formative 5.1-5.2. And I would also refer anybody watching this to that I did do some review yesterday, and I did some review the day before that too. So watching any of those videos might help you.